Good evening. So we are going to answer the question, what is marine environment? Marine environment means the physical, atmospheric, and biological components, conditions, and the factors interactively determine the productivity state, condition, and quality of the marine ecosystem. These includes the waters of the high seas, the contiguous zone, the transitional and intertidal areas, salt marshes, the wetlands within the coastal zone. Oceans cover 71% of Earth's surface and provides us with food, oxygen, and jobs. But they are probably the least understood, most biologically diverse, and most undervalued of all ecosystem. From deep oceans to coastal reefs, from mudflats to seagrass beds, oceans and marine system provides us with essential services such as carbon capture for climate mitigation, renewable energy, and protection from storm surges. As the global population grows, we are probing deeper and further into the oceans for fish, oil, gas, minerals, and genetic resources. Estimating the total value of marine ecosystems could provide policymakers with a strong rationale to improve ocean management and invest in marine conservation. This would reduce environmental risks and ecological scarcities while boosting human well-being. So the next question would be, what are the main sources of marine pollution? But before that, we are going to discuss what is marine pollution. So marine pollution is usually considered in terms of inputs of chemical wastes to the marine environment. However, there are two major issues that represent simpler and more direct threats to the marine environment. First is, there is a clear evidence that almost all fisheries worldwide are fully overexploited. In the North Sea, for example, the clearest trend of environmental change is not of chemical contamination, but the vast decline of fish stocks. Globally, half of the individual fish stocks are fully exploited and another 22% are overexploited. So we are back to answer the question, what are the main sources of marine pollution? There are two categories in describing the main sources of marine pollution, which is the land-based sources and the shipping and maritime industry. In the land-based sources, it is caused by products of industry, runoff from agricultural pesticides and herbicides, effluents discharge from urban areas, and exploration and exploitation activities. While in the shipping and maritime industry, it is caused by collision, grounding or accidental discharge, operational discharges, tank washing, ballasting and deballasting, machinery, space discharge, and even docking. What are the impacts or the effects of marine pollution to the humans, animals, and most especially the shipping industry? So first is it has a great effect on the animals, especially the ones that are living in the oceans, because it can destroy coral reefs, which may decrease the numbers of animals in the ocean, and which can also affect us humans because it is one of the main sources of our food, and which can also lead to shutting down shipping industries. So this marine pollution has a great effect on us. Now we are going to talk about the International Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships, or the MARPOL. So the MARPOL is the main convention covering prevention of pollution of the marine environment by ships from operational or accidental causes. So the MARPOL convention was adopted on November 2, 1973 at IMO. The Protocol of 1917 was adopted in response to a spate of tanker accidents in 1976 to 1977. As the 1973 MARPOL Convention had not yet entered into force, the 1978 MARPOL Protocol absorbed the parent convention. The combined instrument entered into force on October 2, 1983. In 1997, a protocol was adopted to amend the convention, and a new Annex 6 was added, which entered into force on May 19, 2005. So MARPOL has been updated by amendments through the years. So now we are going to talk about the annexes of MARPOL, from Annex 1 to Annex 6. So Annex 1 is the regulations for prevention of pollution by oil. This was entered into force on October 2, 1983. It covers the prevention of pollution by oil from operational measures as well as from accidental discharges. The 1992 amendments to Annex 1 made it mandatory for new oil tankers to have double hulls, and brought in a phase-in schedule for existing tankers to fit double hulls, which was subsequently revised in 2001 to and 2003. Annex 2, regulations for the control of pollution by noxious liquid substances in bulk. This was also entered into force on October 2, 1993. So it details the discharge criteria and measures for the control pollution by noxious liquid substances carried in bulk. Some 250 substances were evaluated and included in the list appended to the convention. The discharge of their residues is allowed only to reception facilities until certain concentrations and conditions are complied with. In any case, no discharge or residues containing noxious substances is permitted within 12 miles of the nearest land. Annex 3 is the prevention of pollution by harmful substances carried by sea in package form. This was entered into force on July 1, 1992. So it contains general requirements for the issuing of detailed standards on packing, marking, labeling, documentation, stowage, quantity limitations, exemptions and notifications. So for the purpose of this annex, or the harmful substances, are those substances which are identified as marine pollutants in the International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code, or the IMDG code, or which meet the criteria in the appendix of Annex 3. Annex 4, Prevention of Pollution by Sewage from Ships. This was entered into force on September 27, 2003. So this contains requirements to control pollution of the sea by sewage. The discharge of sewage into the sea is prohibited, except when the ship has in operation an approved sewage treatment plant, or when the ship is discharging disinfected sewage using an approved system at a distance of more than 3 nautical miles from the nearest land. Sewage which is not comminuted or disinfected has to be discharged at a distance of more than 12 nautical miles from the nearest land. Annex 5 would be the prevention of pollution by garbage from ships. This was entered into force on December 31 on 1988. So this deals with different types of garbage and specifies the distance from land and the manner in which they may be disposed of. The most important feature of the annex is the complete ban imposed on the disposal into the sea of all forms of plastics. Annex 6 would be the prevention of air pollution from ships. This was entered into force on May 19, 2005. This sets limits on sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide emissions from ships' exhaust and prohibits deliberate emissions of ozone-depleting substances. This was designated emission control areas, set more stringent standards for sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide and particulate matter. So a chapter adopted in 2011 covers mandatory technical and operational energy efficiency measures aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions from ships.